Claudia, I've been excited to have this conversation with you. You and I have known each other for some time now, and I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about you, about your amazing journey to where you are today. And today, you are an author of the book called Love is the Path, An Immigrant's Journey to Belonging Through the Workplace. And I think of you as this person who's undergone just a tremendous transformation to get to this moment. And so what's exciting is I want to kind of peel that onion and learn a little bit about how you got here. And you and I did spend a little time together and got to learn about your early life and that moment where you made that decision to move to the US. And then you talked to me a little bit about some of the challenges and the struggles and the decisions and the personal thinking that went through for you to kind of then break out of a shell and decide that, you know what, there's a particular direction that I want to go in my life and I'm going to do it. And so I'm excited to talk to you about that today. This discussion is about total transformation. I love hearing stories of people who have just really like dug deep into themselves and pull the most difficult things of themselves to transform into just something and someone that really nobody ever saw coming. And I think you are one of those people. Um, Claudia, first, I'd love to just hear a little bit about you. Like, tell me who you are. Like, who's Claudia Cardozo?
Thank you, Randy. It's such a pleasure to be having this conversation with you today. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story. I'm currently a coach, so I help leaders and teams to create more inclusive environments, and I also help individuals to have more presence, more compassion, and more connection in their lives.
You are at a point right now where you've published a book, you're coaching, you're coaching at Yale University, you've done some presentations and some level of coaching at Harvard University. I mean, you've really come a long ways from your early life in Colombia. And I would love for you to just tell me about your early life. What was that experience like
Mm.
for you when you look back today?
So, I suffered a lot of neglect and abuse growing up. So, my mom did not had a house. My mom cleaned houses and she lived in the houses that she cleaned. So I was always, a foreign in the houses where I live. So I didn't belong. When I was 10 years old, my mom put me in a group home because she got pregnant and she couldn't take care of me financially. So that home provided me a lot of stability, but at the same time, it was very cold environment. So, when I look back at some of the decisions, some of the pitfalls in my life, I think about, the environment I grew up in and the personality that I have to build early on to survive.
It sounds as if you were living other people's or in other people's lives, not necessarily you having your own identity early on in life.
Mhm.
So there's that challenge as a little girl. What was the dynamics with your mom? What was your relationship with her?
So my mom had a very difficult life. She suffered a lot. I don't know why. Like I have friends here in the United States that clean houses and they're okay. They're making a lot of money. They live well. At that time for my mom, it was, like people in Colombia in those years, they didn't really value that work. They treated her very badly, humiliated her many times. If I made a mistake or if I, was mean when if the kids were mean to me and I was mean back to them, then that was, the end of employment for my mom. So, she in desperation, she would hit me really bad. And not only that, she would hit me, but she would also say things. like you're good for nothing, no sirves para nada, like, and these things like affected me greatly. Like, and it was recently that I really comprehend, the programs,
Right.
the, the psyche that I had because of those experiences that I lived early on. So my life was challenging with my mom. Yeah.
So early in life, then, because of your mom's circumstance, you experienced a lot of the emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and at times physical abuse, which I think for a lot of us, when we're young and we experience that, it begins to create a lot of doubt within ourselves, right? And we begin to evolve that way. And so,
Totally, yeah.
so I'm curious
Mhm.
then, that's you as a little girl when you became a teenager. What what started to happen then? How was your life then? Were you still living, was your mom still cleaning and you're living in different homes even as a teenager?
So from the age of 10 years old until 17 years old, I lived in this group home.
Okay.
It's like a boarding school, but for
Okay.
low income kids with nuns. So very strict, very religious institution that provided me a lot of stability that my mom could not give me, gave me a sense of, give me values, like help me incorporate certain values in my life of right and wrong. And that, so there were a lot of positive things, but there were also some negative things of living in a lot of guilt. And so I don't know, I feel like I didn't have much freedom during that time. So, but at the age of 17 years old, I decided to take a full-time job in
Okay.
Colombia. And I left the group home. And at that age of 17 was the first time where my mom, my sister, and I had a home. Like we lived, like I was paying rent and we live um, in this house, and I provided for the family. So I became the breadwinner at the age of 17, and it was a
Wow.
big source of pride for me. Yeah.
Why was it a source of pride for you at that
Oh
age?
my God. Yeah. Like it was like I was so happy. I thought it was such a big achievement because of the freedom. But I was happy. I was very proud that I had, that I reunited my family, my mom and my sister. So
So
it
I find
was,
that fascinating because, you're now at 17, the breadwinner for your family,
mm-hmm,
which carries great responsibility, some level of control because you're the person who makes the money and kind of sets kind of the pace for where things are going to, what you're going to buy, what you can eat, etc. Um,
mm-hmm,
and for you, that was freedom, right? So,
yes.
so here you are at 17. Then what happens next in Colombia as you go into your 20s? What evolves from there?
Yeah, I actually, I was going to school at 17. Actually, I went to school. I think I graduated from high school like at 19 years old. Yeah, very late because with my mom I did not have stability. So when I got to the group home at 10 years old, I was still in second grade. Like I have done so many second grades because my mom just, were like, one city one day, 6 months later she was in another city. Um so I was going to school, to high school, finishing high school during the evenings, work all day, went to high school in the evening, and I was dating, and I found Victor, who later became my husband. We actually dated for 4 years.
Wow. Okay.
We dated for a long time,
Yeah.
yeah, for 4 years, and I love his family. Because I never had that. He had this big family. They're very united. He had a temper, but I thought like all of the other good things that he had. So I kind of like didn't think much of his temper, and that became an issue later on. We were married.
So yeah, tell me about that. So what? what became an issue? His temper? Was he violent? Because here you are now, you've been through all this as a young girl, a strict mom and the instability. You were in a group home. Now you're making money at age 17 and still going to school. And now you find yourself in a relationship where there continues to be some level of abuse. And it's now kind of your childhood experiences are carrying over into your marriage, it sounds like. And so,
Um,
what transpired with all that experience?
yeah, so I don't remember he treated me bad when we were dating. I remember he being upset at me giving him a space and, to cool down, but when we got married, like things changed drastically. He had this idea of like, okay, now we're married. You need to clean the house, take care of the baby, and I'm gonna just go out and make money. And like romance ended, like it was just everything was about the baby. And he used to compare me a lot with his family, with his sisters, the way that they, the mothers, the professionals, the housekeepers that they were, and that's when the verbal abuse started.
The level of abuse just continued into your early adulthood. And then you
Absolutely.
had you had a daughter with Victor.
Yes.
So you're in your 20s and you had a visa to come to the US, and but you never really thought more of it other than have a
Yes.
visa,
Yeah.
right? Because
Mhm.
because people, in Colombia, if you had a visa and you had an opportunity to leave and go make a better life in the United States, that was the ticket out for a lot of people. That was a huge opportunity. You didn't see it that way at that time, right? You weren't seeing that. Somebody had to point it out for you.
So yes, I worked at this clothing company for like 7 years, and like Victor did not wanted me to work. He wanted me just to stay home, but it was so important for me to grow professionally. So I had the opportunity to evolve in this company. At the end of, close to the end of the 7 years, I was the assistant designer. So so I came into the office where I used to gather like the buttons and zippers to create the samples for production. And as I was speaking to staff, I overheard a conversation between a couple of colleagues, and my friend Julieta, who she she was my confidant. Like I used to tell her like the different fights every other day about that I was having with my ex, or when I was married to him. So she knew a lot about the relationship. And she said to this woman that was sitting there, like, and Claudia has a visa and she doesn't want to go. And the woman looked at me like, what? You have a visa for the United States? But for me, leaving my daughter, it was out of the question. But there was something about the way that this woman described the United States, the land of opportunities, and the desire, the deep desire that she wanted to come, and how many times they denied the visa, and she tried even to do it um, through other mediums, and she was the recipient of a lot of fraud, and it's just like the U.S. wasn't saying yes to her, but here I was with a visa and not thinking about going. So that conversation had a big impact on me
So this was
because
so after, so you got divorced,
yeah.
then you were looking for a place to live and you were trying to make it work based on
Mhm.
your current income. He was still controlling what you did, how you did. And
Yeah.
now you are now beginning to realize that you have an opportunity to come to the United States and build something completely different. And so now you're having that conflict in your head, I'm assuming, between do I take this risk and go to the United States, or do I continue in this vicious circle where my ex is controlling things? What was the moment where the decision was made that you're going to take the risk and come to the United States? What pushed you over that edge?
Yeah, it was that conversation, like the conversation that I was already in a very difficult
Okay.
position, but the conversation gave me hope.
So in this moment, right, which I think is the most pivotal moment of your life, you what for a lot of people doesn't seem real or possible, you kind of begin to realize, okay, here's a visa, it's a ticket out. Some people don't see what's right in front of them and the opportunity that what is right in front of them can provide. You did finally. And then you start kind of assessing everything and going, okay, this is my experience with Victor, but he is a good father,
Mhm.
not a good husband. And as a good father, then I can make the very tough decision of leaving my daughter behind with the idea that I'll take the risk to go to the United States to make a better life so that I can eventually bring her. And those are the types of things that out of nowhere, I'm assuming you started to put together in your mind, kind of the roadmap for this
Mhm.
incredible transition that you're about to make. Tell me, I'm curious if you can remember what what was going through your mind when you were on your way here to the United States. Can you take us back to that moment?
Wow, there was so much fear, the unknown. I didn't know if I was going to be able to find a job. Like a lot of things were uncertain and a lot of pain um, to leave my daughter. Um, and my mother, my sister, my family, like it was a lot of pain, but there was like this light, this little bit of light and hope that kept pulling me here.
So now you get here and what begins to unfold for you? How do you, because now you're picking up, right? Now
Yes.
you and I talked about, the burn, right? Taking your old
Hmm.
life and burning it, right? And it becomes the ashes. And then it's now rising from the ashes. And it, I believe this is the moment where now you are rising from ashes, right? This is the difficult point in the transformation that we all go through. It's like, how do we start becoming what we dream of, what we hope for, what we aspire to be, right? What happens when you get here? How does it begin to unfold? How do you start rebuilding or building something that is just not even part of your who you are?
Yes, I think the people that we surrounded with had such impact on ourselves, right? Like I didn't fully understand how, my environment with Victor, the situation was just had weighed me down so much. So coming here, meeting my friend's brother, he allowed me to, or introduced me to his employer and got me a job at this at the food court in the Providence Place Mall. And and one of my colleagues there told me about the Gloria Day Lutheran Church in front of the mall or on the back of the mall. And that was my community every day. So I used to work all day, rolling burritos and frying tacos at this place, and go to the community in the evening to learn English. I did that for a year. And it was just, I think the people that I was with, it was a community of immigrants and I was excited to learn English, to have a job, to be able to send money to Colombia, to have conversations with other immigrants that were going through the similar struggles that I was going.
So I think that's such an amazing point, Claudia, that you make because, you know, one of the most important things when someone is reinventing or transforming their lives is community, is surrounding yourself with the right people, like-minded people, people that are going to lift you up, people
Yeah.
that have kind of experienced the same things or are experiencing the same things that you have and can give you a hand up or help build your confidence, right? Because to come here, work at the food court at a mall all day,
Mhm.
and then go learn the native language of a country is not easy to do. So here you are now. Then what happens?
Yeah, I just want to add that the clear purpose, it was the direction. So the purpose when I was rolling burritos and frying tacos and learning English was to to get the skills, like learning English was to get the skills so I could get a better job, so I could bring my daughter to the United States. Like that was my purpose, and that kept me moving forward.
Say that's a great point on purpose because a lot of
Yeah.
people, they don't have purpose. They don't know what their purpose is. And so they don't have a roadmap to that next thing or that thing that they're trying to become. You obviously had purpose, and that was your real driving force under the strenuous circumstances, it sounds like.
Yes. So purpose, I think is important for everyone, but for some of us is more important than others. Like for me, purpose is so vital. Like I cannot work without purpose. And I realized that in 2022. So I was able to advance in my career, like, from my burrito and taco job, I was able to get an insurance job because I put myself through school. I took a year of English classes and then I put myself in a program at Rhode Island College to become an insurance technician. And I worked in the industry for 2.5 years, targeting mostly the Hispanic community with a lot of educational programs and selling insurance products. And that helped me build this big network. So once I was kind of well known in the Latino community, I was able to get a job at the Commerce Corporation because they were looking for a liaison to connect, immigrants, Latinos, other underserved communities at that time with resources to start and grow their businesses. So because I had the network, I was able to secure that job. I worked there for 7 years. So, and, love that work. And then, as I was promoting one of my projects at the Commerce Corporation, to it was to support the community. It was like this portal to promote success stories and connect people to resources with this like directory and like a virtual directory. Then one of the banks that I approached for a sponsorship offered me a job. Then I went to work in banking. I worked 7 years in community development, which was like a dream job. Like it was amazing. I couldn't believe they paid me to just help people, just to do financial education, entrepreneurship classes, give grants, sponsorships, attend events. Like I attend so many events in those 7 years. So I was my purpose during my career was to serve the community in all of those jobs. But in 2022, well, actually, I should say COVID, because of COVID, my job changed drastically, like in many, many ways. And I was not only becoming disengaged at work, but I was also going through a lot of personal things at that time, like becoming an empty nester because my daughter, took a job across the country after graduating from college, broken up with my fiance,
So
becoming ill.
your daughter ended up coming to live with you eventually,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So
she
she
came
ended
when,
up,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And then you
yeah. So it's,
also got engaged in the process during this time,
mhm.
right? And that didn't work out, right? So you're undergoing some personal stress at the time with that.
Yeah. So that was actually worse somehow. I mean, it's different, but I think it was worse than when I left Colombia because when I left Colombia, I had purpose. I left Colombia motivated, inspired to build a better future for my daughter. So despite all of the pain that I was going through, there was like this light and purpose that moved me forward. When I became disengaged at work and broke up with my fiance and all of these things happened, I had no purpose. I no longer wanted to go to work, like because my job had changed. Like I was not having the impact that once I had. It was, yeah, like all of the grassroots work were removed from my position. So that was the dark night of the soul for me. When I had to question like why, after all of these sacrifices that I make, after working so hard for 20 years plus that I was here in the US, like it was so hard to believe that I was alone, without friends, without family, totally unhappy, miserable. So,
So
yeah.
this is happening during COVID, right?
Yeah, like 2020, 2022, two very, very difficult years for me.
So not only, is the entire world going through the whole COVID debacle, right, where everyone feels
Mm,
pressed and displaced and, just
exactly, yeah.
life is not normal. You're going through these challenges personally, right? And so you kind of hit, it sounds like another point in your life, a low point, and but this time you don't have direction. You don't feel
Exactly.
direction. And so
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's a tough place for anyone to be in. What happened? How do you pull yourself out of that moment, right? Like to your point in Colombia, you made the decisions, you put everything in your head, you had a roadmap, you had purpose, and you followed it, and it drove you. But here you didn't have purpose. How does someone pull themselves out of that moment?
Yeah. So we always need other people to help us. There were two coaches that I work with that were instrumental to um to help me get out of that mindset. But I want to explain something. I want to explain that throughout my career, I serve, but I serve a little bit of from like an empty cup. Like I serve a little, um, how do you say? Like I have this desire, this deep desire for serving, right? And that gave me so much fulfillment. So I was always out there helping someone. And, I went to bed happy that, because every day I had the opportunity to serve someone. But I didn't cultivate friendships. Like I didn't know how to have intimate relationships. And like looking back, I obviously understand now why, you know, because I didn't have those um that deep connection with family growing up.
Right.
I was right. So it comes from that place, right? So when I found myself completely disengaged at work and not being able to have the meaningful human connection that I had for years, is when I start realizing, oh my God, I have no friends. I have no family. I mean, I knew a lot of people. I had like, I don't know, over 2,000 people on like social media, but and I guess I could call someone, right, and go lunch or something, but I couldn't tell someone, can you come here? I just want to cry all afternoon. I need
Right.
a shoulder to cry. I didn't have that type of friends. So, oof, sorry, in a minute. So I remember one of my coaches saying, find a tribe. You need a tribe. You need to find other people that's going through the things that you're going. And like, she kept saying that over and over. I couldn't fully understand why. Like, that's the least thing I want to do right now.
Right.
but but yeah. So another coach that I hired, this coach was a career coach because I told him like I'm not, I need another job. I can't, you know, I can't be in this job any longer. Like I'm not able to do the job. I don't want to get up out of bed. So we start doing research together and seeing, okay, what type of jobs would I be able to get? Because I was thinking, okay, I don't wanna have a job in banking anymore. And he helped me realize that many of my skills were transferable to new roles. So, he helped me with the resume. I went on interviews and I started believing that, oh my God, yeah, I can do these jobs. But maybe I need to get this certification. I need to, there are certain skills that I need to get, but I can do it. And it was when I had the understanding that I could do that, then I had an aha moment. I was like, maybe I can focus all of this energy in my own business. Because I had started, a side business, but I was doing like, workshops here and there while I had my full-time job throughout the years. I started it in 2017. So at that moment in 2022, I say, well, I can just get the skills that I need to do my business. And that was the new hope for me. Yeah. But also, traveling. I did some traveling and that was transformational for me.
So I want to touch on one thing before we go on, because this is an incredible story and journey.
Mm.
Um,
Thank
when regarding friends, right? Not
you.
having friends, um, do you feel that part of it was also that you didn't want to let people in to see who the real Claudia was, like for them to, you don't want people to know your background, your experiences. You wanted to kind of keep
Yeah.
that hidden. And and so you just kind of traveled alone most of the time.
Of course, of course. Yeah, like I um I was totally afraid to let people see my weaknesses, my insecurities. Mm, so yeah, so I always projected, all the good stuff, all of the human suffering. I wanted it to keep it to myself only. Yeah,
Right,
which was not which was not very healthy because I was in isolation for too long. It was almost 2 years of me
right,
dealing with so many things by myself. It
right,
was debilitating because then you think like something is wrong, terribly wrong with you. But
right.
what I have found out is that the more I share my story, something that before gave me so much shame, like I didn't want anybody to know that my mom cleaned houses, that I didn't have a home, like that, like sis, I did not want to talk to anybody about that. But now I understand that's my source of strength now. Like something that was so shameful in the past is now like, oh, I'm proud of myself. And I want other people to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel and that we're all suffering somehow. Like that's part of being human.
So you took that thinking, right? That way of, finally coming to that realization. And I'm assuming that that was kind of the genesis, right? The beginning of this
Mm.
idea to write a book.
And I signed up for a program called El Camino del Artista, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And it's a book about just connecting with spirit and claiming your creativity. So So I attended a few virtual sessions with him, and then we started talking about like going to Spain to meet him, and had like a transformational experience with him, and I went. I left my job and I went to Spain for 20 days, and this trip was completely transformational for me because I think it was the first time that I was truly living. Living meaning like savoring life, like smelling the roses, like, really tasting my food, like looking at the world with new eyes. And um, so there was an experience, a very mystical experience that I had in Montserrat. And so I visited this beautiful place near Barcelona, the Holy Mountains, called Montserrat. And the energy of that place was absolutely. And I remember one afternoon that I went to the hotel room there. I stayed one night, and I had this like sense of arriving. So it was the afternoon. It was not very late. It was probably like, I don't know, 5:30 or so. And so I look at the sky and the beautiful mountains, and I was just overcome with this peace and arriving to myself. Like I didn't, like I was just so happy to be who I was with my whole story. Like it was a surrender. Like, because for a long time, so the old me was like never good enough. Like whatever I do, it could have been better.
Right.
I had an idealized version of myself, and I was always falling short, but it was habitual. It was just, some days I would let myself short more than others, but this time I know there was something different. It was just like surrendering to the being, to not to the story, but to the being, if that makes sense. So I surrendered to life in the moment. So when I came back, I you know I started thinking about the contrast between what I lived there and what was like my normal life at that time, and a lot of rumination, and then my spiritual seeking began. Like I did another trip in the Dominican Republic, and that's where I did the outline for the book, when it became clear that yes, I do want to share my story. It's important that other people understand that we can relate to ourselves differently, that we don't have to be conditioned or limited by the past.
Right.
And that was the motivation and new purpose for me to write the book.
You overcame a lot of your limiting beliefs that that you were raised with, that
Yeah.
were part of who you were, and you had to really break through that to then be able to tell your story that you kept to yourself your entire life. And you did that finally through
hmm
your book, Love is the Path.
Correct.
What what was that experience like to write that book?
I wrote the book a little bit in survival too. because because I had an awakening. It was a true
Yeah,
awakening. But having an awakening, like being able to see life differently, it doesn't mean that you're an awakened being. you know?
yeah,
So so it was a beautiful process in many different ways because it forced me to look at my life very objectively, but at the same time to really connect with so many things that happen in my life. Like I remember writing and crying, or like just finishing a chapter and just giving myself a couple of hours to recoup. And it was just very cathartic to be able you know this, Randy.
I know it. I know
You're
it
a
really well.
writer.
Yeah, look, I know it really well, but one of one of the books that I started to work on while I was just, in the last year and a half doing so much writing and
Hmm.
reflection was a personal story. And it was something I started writing almost 15 years ago that I went and pulled out and started working on again. And to your
Incredible.
point about, cathartic feeling, that feeling of, feeling cathartic, it, I would write for a couple of hours and it would put me into an emotional twist. There were things that I was revisiting. There were
Hmm.
memories that were coming back to me, right? So what you're talking about is a very real thing. It brings you back to a moment, an experience, and through that writing, you challenge it, and you stress it, and you rewrite it, and you tell it in a way, always thinking with purpose on how it's going to help somebody when the final product is done, right? And so it's just an amazing feeling. And so but a very tough, difficult experience to do. And that's, after having read your book, I can tell that that is what happened with this.
I just want to encourage everyone, anyone, and everyone listening to this to write. Not necessarily to publish a book, but just to write. To journal. It's so important, and you could just, when you're in moments of pain, or when you're happy, or when you're introspective, or you want to make an important decision, just write, and you can just burn the page after. But the writing process really connect us with this wisdom within us, connect us with presence and wisdom, and help us to take our thoughts out of the mind, put them on paper, and now being able to look at them objectively. I think that's the beauty of, the written word. It's just once you see it, then you're able to understand yourself better when you get it out of your
Right.
head. But when everything is in your head, sometimes it's not as clear.
Right.
So writing is a beautiful exercise.
I agree with you. Writing is an incredible exercise. I journal. I love it. I mean, obviously, I spent the last year and a half doing a lot of writing. But for those who don't like to write, record your thoughts. I think what you're
Sure.
what you're saying is get
Hmm.
it out of your head, however it is, right?
Correct.
And if you
Yeah.
want to record it onto your phone or whatever it might be, it's you know, it's a healing process, and it helps you really kind of think through what's happening and help you roadmap as to like what you do next versus keeping it all in your head. And I think that's incredible. And you did that with this book. And what I now find amazing is where you are today. I mean, I know that you became Deepak Chopra certified. You've got a couple of coaching certifications. You are doing life coaching. You through the business that you've started in 8-5. And I say all that because Claudia, coming from where you came from to be in this moment, and this is just a moment. It's still evolving, it's still
Hmm.
transforming for you, but to be in this moment from where you came from is transformation at its truest form. And to hear that and understand that is really just something that should inspire anybody who feels stuck in their lives, because you don't need to be stuck. Just look right in front of you and you begin to see all the pieces and elements that can help begin to transform your life. And you did it.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very proud of myself, very happy where I am right now. And I'm also very, very, very grateful for the moments of pain, for the moments I was stuck, for the fire, because if it wasn't for the fire, like burning the old version of Claudia Cardozo and really shaking everything up. So, it's those moments of suffering, unfortunately, for most of us, to help us grow. So anyone that feels stuck, just feel your pain and like ask yourself the right questions so you can have the insight to embody the person you want to become. I think that's that's what we need to do when the sorrow comes, when the pain comes. It's us connecting with that, because if we don't connect with that pain, if we find escapes, things to escape the pain, then we don't transcend it, right? So we have to sit with our pain and understand what we need to learn and who do we need to be in order to transcend the situation that we put ourselves into.
Claudia, thank you so much for this great conversation.
No,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
you. I appreciate getting to know you. I appreciate your story. Totally appreciate your journey, and I'm excited to see and hear where you're going to be in 5 years and 5 years after that, because you are the kind of person that never stops transforming. I love how you're always looking for that opportunity to grow spiritually, mindfully, just professionally. And so I appreciate that, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about this.